actually works when you see those white spots, then what you're supposed to do is go for a beer and then come back.
Yeah, usually the next coat, like if I miss a spot or if I have a little imperfection there, what I'll do is if I really, like sometimes what happens to you when you're working on putting on a finish or doing something, you're focusing really closely on what you're doing, right? All of a sudden you think, okay, I got this figured out. No problem at all. Your mind starts to wander. You think about the garbage you got to take out, the wife you got to take to the doctor, all this other stuff that you've got going on, right? All of a sudden your mind wanders and you forget what you were doing and you go back to your old habits or you miss a spot or whatever. Let it harden up well, scuff sand the surface, and put your next coat on. And just, it'll flow itself out. It does have levelers in it. It will flow itself out. All their products do have the levelers in them, so they really will flow for you if you let them work for you. Now, there is times when you get, you might say, well, gee, that's nice on that little flat piece of surface. What if I was working on something that had a lot more difficulty to it? If I was working on something like this, you're working on a leg like this, you think, well, gee, did a nice job of spraying that leg. Well, this is actually a wipe-on poly on here. This is a polyurethane that was put on with a cloth. With this one here, wipe-on poly, the difference being is how these products are created, right? They're meant for special purposes. And that's why it's nice to experiment with them, figure out what's going to work the best for you, what you like the best. With this one here, this one only leaves behind what hits the surface. It doesn't leave a lot of excess behind, so you don't get the drips and sags and runs in around all the turnings and the shaping on here. It just leaves a nice thin film coating on there. Again, you don't want to keep rubbing it. You're not trying to burnish it in. You're just wet the surface, leave it alone, let it flow out. Usually what I find works the best for something like this is make up yourself a little applicator, like so. Depending on how big a project you want, you make a bigger or smaller one. All this is a bit of cheesecloth inside a nylon. I'm sure you guys got probably a couple pair of nylons out there that you could work through. But, you might have been saving that pair to use as a fan belt. I don't know how many of you looked under the hood of your car lately, but you look at that serpentine belt, there's no way a pair of pantyhose is going to do you any good. But it's an easy way to put a film on something that's a very difficult surface to put it on. One of the things that this one here is, this one actually started off being a satin version. I had 3 coats of satin on here one day, and I was doing a demonstration, talking to a group of people. And I find that most of my time when I'm talking to a group of people, I'm looking at the people out here. I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing here as much as I should. So I happened to grab the can of gloss, wipe-on poly. I put on the 1 coat of gloss on top of that 3 coats of satin. I was in gloss mode from there on in. It's got 2 more coats of gloss on there. It's got 6 coats altogether. There was 3 satin and 3 gloss on there, and it shines like anything. And the guy that actually gave me the leg, he says, that's really nice. And I says, yeah, it would have been really nice if you had to give me 4. And he says, if I give you 4 legs, you'll never show my leg to anybody, right? And I said, well, you're probably right there. It'll be on a table at my house. One of the things I want to kind of talk to you about a little bit, and that is that when you buy product, you're making an investment into something that's really valuable. Something that's going to show for you some benefit. Sitting there looking at it, and you're saying, well, here's a guy from the company. He comes out and he's showing us products, and he's got these dented old cans. Well, there's a reason I do this, and this is something that I do personally because I really hate to waste product and good product. And pardon me? That's right. It actually displaces the air out of the can and keeps the formula the same as it was the first time. Because when you open up a brand new can of product, it's the best that ever performs, right? The guys at R&D that make our products that design our products, they know how to do things right, and they create a great product. And if you can keep it in that same condition as it was when you bought it, it's going to perform that great for you every time. So keep it in mind, whatever you're doing to the product, you want to make sure you're doing the right thing for it. With this one here, what I usually do when I'm finished using this product is I'll pop the cap open and I'll hold it out at arm's length away from me like this and squeeze the can and bring the product up to the top. Release it, squeeze it again, bring it up to the top. Don't stand with your head over top of it like so. Because as you're watching it come out, it's coming out. It's coming out quick. So this is a great way to keep that air out of the can, and it'll help keep the product in good shape. Now, obviously, we can't do it with this can. We can't squeeze the can. It's a plastic can. It's just going to pop back. So the solution I come up with for this type of a product is what I'll do is in my shop at home, I have a bucket with marbles in it. I haven't lost all my marbles yet. I still have a few left over. So I take a handful of marbles and drop it into the product. Bring the product level back up to the top. Displace the air out of it. Put the lid back onto it. Clean your rim off good and put it back on. Seal it up. It's going to keep your product in good condition. When you've used up all the product, all you got to do is clean off the marbles, put them back in the bucket, recycle them through. It's a good way to keep your product in good shape. If I'm going to be in and out of that product for quite a bit for the next little while, what I find is always an alternative way to keep the product in good condition as well is take a bit of 6 mil poly vapor barrier, like so. Cut a little hole in the slice a little hole in the center, like so. Put it right inside the can, float it on top of the product. When you want to go to use it next time, take a wire with a little hook on the end of it, go down through there, pick that piece of plastic off, throw it away, stir your product up, and away you go, right? Other thing to keep in mind when you're using a product, it's always a good idea to pour it off into a different vessel. You know, get yourself a plastic container or whatever you like to work out of, something you can hold in your hand comfortably, pour it into there, work out of there. The thing you don't want to be doing is taking your brush onto the wood surface, taking the wood flour back into the product, right? You're just going to create more problems. You take those particles back into there. So stir up your product, pour it off into a little separate vessel, work out of that smaller vessel, keep your product in good condition, right? Definitely something you want to keep in mind with your stains and conditioners as well. You know, not just your finishes, but all your other products as well. Because if you contaminate them with particles of dust and wood flour and stuff like that, it will congeal in the bottom and create problems for you with the product. It'll spoil it. Yes?
Flea Valley sells a spray can that you can spray into a container so it's air.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that affect the chemistry of the material?
I'm not sure. It probably won't, but I always have that hard time of figuring out whether I've got enough in there or not, right? Like if I can't see it, I don't really believe it all the time. So it's kind of really, if it's in just a vapor, an air product in there, is it, you know, have I got enough? Did I spray enough? Did I waste more than I put in there? You know, it's always been one of those things that I've asked. I find it just using something that visually puts it to the level where you want to be is an easy way for me to tell. Yes?
Each one of these pages what's cubed?
That's just a term for actually. This manual here that I've given you is what we would give to store staff, and that when we do trainings and that type of stuff. So it has some information in it that might not be to the end user. The cube in that is just that talks about case quantities and pack sizes and different things like that. And that's more for the buyer to understand how big a product, you know, that they're getting, right? Like how much size it takes up, and that'll be a case pack size will be a cubed of so many numbers. Yeah, it's not really anything important. Yeah. Yes.
We're separating the stain. What I use, I'll use a American container, and I buy a turkey base from the dollar store, and I siphon it out.
Yeah.
Because anybody knows you go to port, it's going to spill all over the place.
Yeah.
I find that's the easy way. Then I just use the amount I need. Or
Sure. Yeah.
It's less sloppy.
I find it's, you know, there's different things you can get a hold of. Like if you go to like a TSC store or anything like that, you can get the plastic syringes, the big ones that they use for animals. They're great for intricate, calibration of stains and stuff like that as well. Yeah, it's a good scoop spoon sometimes will work great. Whatever it takes to get it out, you know, like I've got into the habit of pouring and feeling comfortable enough at it that I just do it. And usually in my shop, I'm the only one that has to worry about what's on the floor. Yes?
Can you put wipe on over regular poly?
Absolutely.
Can you put spray on over both of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There's only a few limitations. as far as what you can put over top of one another. With our polyurethanes and any of our stains and that, our polyurethanes are all will work over top of any of our oil-based or water-based stains. When you get into the gel formulations, there is some limitations. You really can't get a tongue oil to penetrate through a gel stain because it is a polyurethane base and it's closing off the pores, so it won't work over top of that. If you're trying to put a penetrating stain over top of a water-based stain, it will take the color away too as well. So there's that kind of limitation. The penetrating oils are a little bit different. They're meant for more the natural wood finishing, because what penetrating oils do is the antique oil and the tongue oil and the teak oil, they penetrate into the wood and harden from within. So they need to work their way in there. So they try to fight through everything that's in their way, right? So they really will lift some water-based stains out there. Gel stain, it really can't get through it. That's the problem. Yeah. Yes?
You provide polyurethanes pressurized cans?
We still have our regular fast dry formula in the aerosols, yes.
We have an aerosol container?
Yes. Yeah. And just a word on that one, when you get a can of polyurethane aerosol, what you'll end up with is usually everybody takes a can of aerosol. The first thing they do is they shake it up, they try to get that marble working. If you pick up a can of our gloss polyurethane, there is no marble in there. You can be shaking for a long time and you won't find that there's any rattling going on there. Because of the gloss formula, there's no satinating agents in there. It doesn't need something to agitate it up, so we don't put the marble in there. We're saving our marbles.
Do you have a shelf life to your product?
My expiry date, oh no. Stains, not really an issue. Polyurethanes, as long as there's not a lot of air in the can, they can be around for a long time. I've got a can of teak oil that I've used almost every bit of it up except for a little bit like this, and it's squeezed right flat. It lays on the shelf at this point, and it's over 3 years old now, and it's still liquid inside. It's the air that's going to affect these products. With the stains and the conditioners, not so much because it doesn't have the same dryers in it. But with the oils and the wipe-ons and the polyurethanes, they all have drying agents to them, so they will. If you have a lot of air in there, they're going to try to set up.
Can you stir your cans upside down
He can, but it's still got the air in there.
it's at the bottom?
Yeah, it's still in there. It's still in there. Yeah. Yes.
I got a table at home that has a white ring, water ring.
Mm-hmm. Did you get it?
Yeah. One of your products
Where white rings usually happen, most times, is from the bottom side of the table. If you look underneath the table, you'll probably see that there's no finish on the bottom of it. Usually what happens, if there's an open pour of solid wood, right, like if it's a solid wood top, and it doesn't have a stain on the bottom side of it, what happens is moisture will wick into there, and then when you put something hot or something wet on the top, it draws that moisture up, and that's what creates those white rings. So usually what happens is that moisture is pulled up out of the wood and kind of trapped between the finish and the wood. So what you have to do is try to get rid of it. Usually what I find is the only thing I usually try to use is take a little bit of mineral oil, moisturize the surface, and then you can take a heat gun and just watch your heat on it. You're not getting too crazy with it, but you want to just warm it up and kind of pull that moisture up out through the finish. But what you'll find is it's going to continue to happen unless you put something on the bottom side of the table. You gotta, whenever you're working with solid wood tops or solid wood furniture, always put stain, even a penetrating stain like so, right? When you look at this can, it says penetrate stains and seals. What that seal means, it seals off the wood, so it doesn't allow moisture to wick in, it doesn't allow moisture to wick out. So it stabilizes it, right? And that's what you got to keep in mind when you're doing solid wood tops. The thing that always happens is somebody puts a pot on there or a pizza box or something, and it pulls the heat pulls the moisture up.
Yeah, I think what this white ring is from, though, is It was a potted plant, my wife put on the thing,
Mm-hmm.
overwatered it, and it went over the rim.
Yeah, because the moisture and the condensation, the temperature change in the pot is pulling moisture up. Moisture always tracks moisture. And that's why when you see, sometimes you'll see a garage door, that has a nice spar urethane on it, and it's starting to peel off. Usually if you go and look at the door, the edges or the backside will not be finished. And what's happening is moisture wicks in there and then the sun pulls it, right, and pulls the film right off. So to get, to treat the wood properly, what you need to do is put a coating basically all around. If you got a solid wood piece. Like this piece, I finished this probably, I don't know, 5, 7, 8 years ago. Put a finish on here. It's never been fastened down. And if you look at it, it hasn't really moved. If you left one side finished and one side unfinished, what's naturally going to do? It's going to try to cup, right? So by stabilizing the moisture content in the wood, you've taken a lot of that movement out of it. You'll notice this with bowl turnings and stuff like that. A lot of times you'll see a bowl, it'll change its shape over a quick period of time sometimes. But it's again, think about the structure you're working with. This, like if you think of a piece of wood, it's like a bundle of straws, right? And it's just going to take the moisture into it. If it's an open pore, what it's going to do is it's going to suck moisture out of the air. Even just humidity in the air will do it. And just pull it in. Sometimes what I usually find, if there's a ring on the table, the first thing I always do, take my paint thinner to it, a little bit of paint thinner on a clean cloth, just take 2 cloths, moisten a bit with the paint thinner, wipe it down and wipe it off. What that's going to do is if it happens to be, sometimes you can get a bit of a wax film on there or something, and the water can haze it and make it look like a white ring that's gone through the table. Sometimes you're lucky enough that that's all it is and it'll clean it off. If it isn't, if it's in the ring is pulled up out of the wood itself, then you've got to try to get that moisture out of there because that's the only way you're going to get rid of it. And a lot of guys will say, well, you can take denture cream or something to it, but if you take anything with a abrasive to it onto a film, you're going to change the sheen, and it's always going to be, that's the first thing you're going to look for every time you walk in and look at that table. Yes?
With that circumstance, could you spritz the bottom of the table that isn't finished? Use your heat gun underneath the table to pull that ring back through the bottom of the table
tough.
And then finish it?
Yeah.
More moisture up.
Yeah, it'll just keep going up.
Keep going back up. And
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, unfortunately, because it's sealed on the top, it's just gonna keep working its way up. Right? Yeah, it really doesn't. The best thing to do is to try to take it, moisturize it a bit with a bit of mineral oil, and then take some heat to it and pull it up.
My wife has used a piece of material and a flat iron, heat it with iron and suck it.
Yeah, I find the only problem with the iron in the cloth is that I can't see, and I don't know whether I got too much heat or not enough heat or anything like that. I find with a bit of a heat gun, or a hot hair dryer, sometimes you can see what you're doing a little bit more, right? I think we're gonna cut it off there. Yeah. Now, we got a comment over here. It's a gentleman that was working on a project and he got little dots coming back up out of the wood after he put a coat of stain on it. It was probably oak you were working on? Yeah. And that's typical of oak today because oak is harvested a little bit quicker, so it's a little bit more open pore. So what's happening when you put your penetrating stain in, it pulls it down, and then as it's curing, it pushes back up. And that's where you get those little dots coming back up, and that's what we call bleed back. And that's where I said sometimes when they're using a conditioner first, it will eliminate a lot of that bleed back problem because it fills in the pores with a clear product, and so that you're not getting that drastic color pull down and then push back up. Right?
Okay, I'd like to thank Ralph for taking the time out. I know you're probably gone for an hour.
Thank you. You guys are a great audience. I really like to come out to the clubs and see everybody, but if you happen to get around to a wood show and you see that I'm going to be there, usually my seminars are posted. Usually that's all I do at the wood shows anymore is seminars and stand around and talk to people, so feel free to drop by and see me. I think my next one I'm up to is I'm actually going to Leamington this weekend to do, if anybody's interested in going all the way to Leamington, down there this weekend, and then in Hamilton, the end of February. That show has been moved from, usually is on this weekend coming up, and it's been moved over to the end of February now, 1st of March. So if you're up that way, great chance to see everybody from the woodworking industry up there.
Okay, on behalf of the club, there's a little mug for you.
Thank you very much.
We thank you very much.
Oh, we got the glove on.